It's not over. UCF is set to take on Oregon State in basketball for the first time in history.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. Joining me as he does every single week is my good friend Andrew Gluco from The Last Word on Sports. Andrew, today we're talking about UCF versus Oregon State in the inaugural Crown basketball tournament. We're going to talk about impact players on both sides, and we're going to make our predictions, as we always do on every game, about who we think is going to win. But let's start with the breakdown of the game. As I mentioned in the open, this is the first time these two teams have ever met in the history of college basketball, UCF versus Oregon State. We talked about this for the last few weeks. Great opportunity for UCF to kind of build some momentum going into the offseason. Now, there have been a lot of portal additions, and, certainly Johnny Dawkins is taking this Crown tournament serious because there's NIL money on the line, and he's going to need that to continue to build his roster.
Has worked out, has not worked in the favor of the Knights. But Johnny Dawkins has dealt with this before. I mean, last year there were 11 newcomers on the roster. We've already seen 8 players announce that they're leaving the program to go into the transfer portal. So it comes to no surprise that UCF is going to have their work cut out for them to rebuild. But we still got the rest of this season to, starting in just a handful of hours. Day one is wrapping up for the college basketball Crown as we're recording this right now. Obviously played in Vegas, so those games are a little bit later. UCF plays 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern time tomorrow, Tuesday. So there's a few hours between now and then to go get some popcorn, some chips, some beer, and get ready to enjoy the game. But as far as the on the court aspect, UCF obviously not at 100% strength, dealing with injuries, dealing with players that do not look to be there. And we'll have to talk about that because that's a material thing that you can't ignore.
Yeah, agreed. It's not going to be a fully loaded roster for Johnny Dawkins, but certainly still got to find a way to compete in this one. This is part of college basketball now. Guys are going to hit the portal, and you're going to have to deal with this. That has a lot to do with the results that we saw from this season. Well, guys seeking other opportunities to play basketball elsewhere. As far as how these teams match up, what do you see here? For UCF, the story has been simple. It's been at the 1 deep, we're pretty good, but once you get past that, there's not much. Well, now you have a depleted roster, so certainly depth is going to be even more of an issue in this one for Johnny Dawkins' squad.
Absolutely. I mean, you just look at the list of players that have already announced that they're going out. Let's see. You've got, Keyshawn Hall, J.J. Taylor, Rokas Jocic, Cameron Simpson, Tyler Hendricks, Niels Mahowski, Jalen Sellers, and Mikey Williams. They've all announced that they're going. That doesn't include the seniors that are playing their last game, in particular Darius Johnson. Some of these players have been out due to injury. Mikey Williams has been out. Simpson's missed all season. Jocic and Sellers have been out. Jalen Sellers, last year's top scorer, has only played 3 games, was on short minutes, and wasn't able to. Things didn't work out. He's gone anyway, regardless. The big thing is, and I want to quote, Matt Michelle, Orlando Sentinel, great guy, great beat writer. He put an article out. And he's talking about the players that have left to the portal, but he also added, according to a source, Coach Johnny Dawkins would allow select players, including Hendricks and Mahowski, to compete in the tournament despite entering the portal. However, the team will most likely be without Hall, who led the Big 12 in scoring with 18.8 points a game. As we know, last week he announced that he was going to the NBA draft, but did not hire an agent. That means they can, he and others that do that can come back for another, to college. But then he announced that he's, hitting the transfer portal. As we know, until, before July 1st, the current NIL system is still in place. And so you're going to see a lot of front-loaded deals. And in case there's already rumors that Keyshawn Hall has been floated offers of $2.5 million range. I mean, we're talking stuff that UCF has no prayer of keeping up with. And so it's understandable that he would go chase that, because once July 1st hits, and this is why 700 plus players have gone into the portal versus prior years. They're all flooding it because they know after this, those numbers drop drastically because that money's not available. You're now dealing with essentially a salary cap. And we've talked about this, with new scholarships coming into play. I believe it was 74 of them spread amongst the, multiple sports like baseball, softball, sports that have, partial scholarships are now being upgraded to full, which is a long time coming. Should have happened years ago. But that's going to impact what football players and basketball players are going to be able to make from an NIL standpoint. So a lot of these players are just going out there trying to get the highest dollar possible. And Keyshawn Hall has put himself in a position to make a good amount of money. And so I can't fault him. At the end of the day, players have to do what's in their best interest. I don't fault them for using the system that's in front of them. But as they say later in this in the article from Matt Murschel in the Sentinel, is Hall then posted a video on social media showing himself back home in Cleveland, attending a Cavaliers game on Sunday while UCF was traveling to Vegas. So the expectation, he's not going to be there. So UCF's going to have to rely on Jordan Ivory Curry and Darius Johnson and Mustafa Cham to really carry this team. They're your best three players left on the team, and someone else is gonna have to step up. Is it Debo Coleman who can be streaky at times? Is it a younger player like a Dear Johnson or Hendricks? Someone's gonna will Mahovsky catch fire. Someone's gonna have to step up and find a way to hold this together. I think losing Hall is absolutely brutal, but at the end of the game, someone has to, someone's going to have to handle the ball, shoot the ball, score, or it's going to be a really long day for the Knights.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I like this move by Johnny Dawkins to let guys who have entered participate if they want to. You got to re-recruit your roster after every season. And I think that this might be one last ditch effort to say, hey, don't forget what it's like to play for the Knights, to play here, right? I think it's a good move on his part, Andrew, to let these guys play if they're willing and maybe play on that nostalgia a little bit and try to get these guys to return. Just because you get in the portal does not mean you cannot return.
Right.
They can return. And so I think Johnny Dawkins, extending an olive branch rather than burning a bridge is such a great thing to do. These guys have to look out for themselves. Again, if you're Keyshawn Hall, if you really got $2 million waiting for you in the portal and UCF doesn't have that, young man, go get that money. I'd like to see him stay in Orlando. I think he would be great. But also, they've got to do what's best for them. But without Keyshawn Hall, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to say he was quoted by a beat writer for Kansas basketball, because apparently Kansas is one of the schools recruiting him. He was quoted saying, quote, "My next school, I'm looking to win. I've been everywhere. I've scored all over the country. That doesn't get you anywhere if you don't win. I've not been to the NCAA tournament my whole career. I'm trying to get to the Final Four." I get it. That was the same comment Myles Garrett said. But then, of course, he ends up re-upping with the Cleveland Browns. But at the end of the day, players want to win. Being on a team that doesn't win, it sucks. It hurts. And I don't blame him for looking to go elsewhere. He's trying to parlay to an NBA career, and while Taylor Hendricks was able to land himself a lottery deal. I think Keyshawn Hall would actually benefit from a program that knows really how to put players into the league, because Hall still has a lot of holes in his game that needs work. I mean, he's a very incomplete player. He can score 40 points and then score 6. There are times where he just completely takes over hero ball, and then, of course, bad things happen at that point. So I think there's potential for Hall to improve his game somewhere else where he doesn't have to be the man. He can learn with behind someone who maybe a little bit better than him, as a 1-2 punch, or with a coach that has a track record of being able to fit, develop those players at the very end of their career. Johnny Dawkins, for all his good, does not have much of a track record of developing NBA players. Who's playing the NBA, from Johnny Dawkins' time at UCF? Obviously, Hendricks and Taco Fall. And Taco Fall did it because he's way over 7 foot tall. You can't teach that. Yeah, so sure. And Hendricks, it was just an absolute athletic freak. I don't blame Hall for doing what he feels is best for him. He wants to win. He needs a better team around him. He wants to go to the NCAA tournament and try to win a championship. Go do you, man. I wish him the best. I wish he would play in the tournament, but I mean, I don't see him gaining anything out of it. These other players, Niels Mahovsky and stuff, they can benefit from having that extra, bit of film and stuff. Now, Keyshawn Hall's out of the picture. Some of these players are going to have a chance to step up and shine. And that's going to be very valuable film that they can peddle to a would-be school to transfer to. Because as I said before, they're trying to get in those front-loaded deals so that they can get a little bit of cheese before, the treasure chest gets closed and starts being rationed out.
Well, without Keyshawn Hall, you still need impact players. He was the Big 12's leading scorer. Who's going to step up? Who's going to be an impact player for UCF in this game versus Oregon State? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before, guys. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Look, I'm going to be in San Antonio watching somebody cut down the nets, and you should definitely get your entry in there. Pick your favorite team, stay in the action. It's easy, fast, and the FanDuel app is so simple to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get on college hoops action all tournament long. Who are going to be the impact players for UCF versus Oregon State? As we mentioned, Keyshawn Hall is out. Andrew, likely. So we'd be shocked to see him play. But who are you looking for to step up here for Johnny Dawkins' squad in this first round of the tournament? As we mentioned, they're taking on Oregon State. The tournament is going on as we speak. Before you answer that, I do want to show people the bracket. Again, Utah there took on Butler. Butler won, and then you had GW and Boise State. Boise State came out with the win. Nebraska versus Arizona State. Nebraska won. And this last game with Washington State, Georgetown is going on as we speak. Now, on the other side of the bracket, we mentioned DePaul and Cincinnati, Oregon and UCF, Colorado and Villanova, and Tulane and USC. Second game of the day, 2:30 Pacific, UCF versus Oregon State. Who's your impact player for UCF to step up in this one?
Well, it's got to be Darius Johnson. I mean, when we've seen him carry a team before, so it's got to be him. And as we saw against Kansas in the Big 12 tournament, they need to protect him. Keep him out of foul trouble. We saw what happens when he went down and fouled out. The team just looked leaderless. They looked lost. So, Darius Johnson, could be a streaky player too, but he's a good field general. He's able to at least, hold the team together. He may not be a traditional point guard, but he's still the glue that holds this team together offensively. After that happened, you saw a lot of one-on-one. So, and that didn't work and they started tiring out. But again, if he can stay out of foul trouble, distribute the ball, look for that extra pass. You have guys who can be very streaky shooters, Mohajir, Debo, Coleman, Johnson himself. They all can be very streaky shooters that if they catch fire, get hot for a little bit, can really, really pour on some points. And then you got the inside-outside game with Mustafa Cham. He can play outside, even though I'm not a big fan of him shooting the three. He does hit him from, about, 30 to 33% of the time. I wish he wouldn't shoot as many times, but if he's left wide open, you can't fault him for doing it. It's forcing their, Oregon State's going to have to either bring their big man out, which then opens the inside for a player like Johnson, who's great slashing in there and creating a shot off the glass. I mean, he's great at that. So if the center comes out, there's an avenue in, or if he stays inside, you now have a wide open shooter on the outside who can make some shots and do some damage.
Is there an opportunity for Debo Coleman to kind of show off what he can do here? Like,
well, this is it. This is it.
Yeah, right.
He's a bit better on. He's more of a defensive guy. He can cause people fits, but we've
seen him hit some big threes though, Andrew. We've seen him hit big threes.
Exactly. Now it's do the extra pass. Now that we saw him against Kansas. They were making the extra pass and then hitting the open shot. He can be the guy that takes that open shot and hits it. But UCF has to move the ball around well, and they have to avoid the one-on-ones. Coleman's not a one-on-one player. His best place is hanging outside the wing, and you just rotate the ball around, bring Ivory Curry inside, and then kick the ball out to a guy like Coleman or Mohajir to hit that open three. Again, Coleman can be streaky, but this is an opportunity now without Keyshawn Hall that, he also can say, hey, look at me, because, this may be his, the end of his career. However, that's his college career. He could still move on and play, in Europe or in Asia. So a player of his caliber does not have to end here. But the more that he can prove that he's got the chops to do it, the better.
Yeah. Look, I think that he is my impact player in this one. UCF's going to need somebody to step up here. And certainly without Keyshawn Hall, it's a tall task. It's a very, very tall task. They were not a deep team. But certainly you saw flashes from some guys about what they could be. And if you're Johnny Dawkins, you're looking and you're just thinking, I just got to build some positive momentum headed into this offseason. We've talked repeatedly about the state of UCF athletics right now. And certainly people are really not happy with Terry Mohajir and some of the things that he's done. Football 4-8, man, basketball, so close, but not there. We talked about women's basketball and where they're at right now. I think Terry Mohajir needs a win as an AD, and maybe, basketball is not as big as football is, but certainly I think with where college basketball is today, there's an opportunity. I spent the weekend, Andrew, at the Elite Eight. And I can tell you the energy, like what it was, the enormity of college basketball is something that UCF can take advantage of in the Big 12. And I think even outside of that, so many teams have an opportunity to really, really get their school to the next level in college basketball because of how many teams have a chance to win a championship. If you're UCF, this Crown tournament could be that we could be looking back on this as their opportunity to start something, to build something, and maybe even a turnaround, not only for UCF basketball, but for UCF athletics.
Well, it's no secret. I enjoyed the Florida Sun this weekend a little too much. little burnt. However, that is not as hot as the seat that Terry Mohajir is sitting in respect to the UCF fan base. His hirings have not done well. Baseball is falling apart as we speak. Gus Malzahn, enough said. That didn't work out. Women's basketball is not done well at all. So his track record in hiring has been just not good. And he's trying to salvage things with bringing back Scott Frost. We know that Frost was not the first choice. He was not the second choice. He was down the list a little bit, and he was a safe choice. So the real question is, Mohajir has to weigh. Do I need to make a change? Do I have to move on from Dawkins, make a splash, and rebuild this roster from scratch as we start the new era of NIL in college sports? And if he does that, then next year is a lost season. And the reason why I say that is because all these players that are scattering to the portal, they're trying to, again, as we talked about before, they're trying to take advantage of that open door right now that closes July 1st and get that front-loaded NIL deal. Well, if he hires someone new, it's going to be really difficult to sell that. With Johnny Dawkins, they at least have some continuity. This is a major flux point. There's this huge change about to happen. So I would not be surprised, because Dawkins cannot finish worse than a 500 record this season. He's 17-16. So the 17-17 is where they can end. I would not be surprised if they hold on to him for one more year for two reasons. One, the buyout becomes a little bit cheaper. UCF is still on a partial payment plan with the Big 12. This is their last year. They're guaranteeing $19 million payout, while the other Big 12 teams, not including BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati, are getting full payouts. The four that came from the non-power, they had basically a structured thing. 18 mil last year, 19 mil this year, full share next year. So UCF may sit on it for one more year just to navigate through this change. There's a lot going on, and I wouldn't be surprised if they looked more towards the women's program of let's just hit the reset button on this one. It hasn't done anything. The under Satya Messer, it just has not worked out. And you know what? It happens, but it's really hurt the legacy of Terry Mohajir. Sure, he's navigated UCF to join the Big 12, but as we know, most of that work wasn't done with him. That was stuff that happened over the years ahead of time, and he was just happened to be here. You're navigating through this new NIL generation. You're getting Roth Tower, expanded and redone. So I mean, there's projects going on. It's not at all a terrible thing that he's done. However, fans want to see wins, and they're not showing up. And that's what you get judged by. It's like a coach. Eventually, you're going to be judged by, are my programs winning? And when you have to fall back on, softball and tennis and a lot of the smaller sports outside of, football and basketball, it does not bode well for your public, perception. Fans by and large want to see football and basketball do well. If those aren't doing well, you have to face the music at some point. So again, he's going to have to make that decision. Do you take that cost now and buy out Johnny Dawkins? Because obviously this is a not cause fire. That wins and losses is not a cause. So you're gonna have to pay a buyout, and then you're gonna have to bring someone else in, or do you wait a year, buyouts a little bit less, and you've navigated into the new generation of NIL, and the playing field's gonna be a little more level at that point.
Yeah, UCF is going to have to do I'm confident in their ability to be able to navigate this new NIL era because of how they prepared for it. They've been ahead of this process every step of the way, Andrew, in terms of having a plan for dissolving the kingdom, the NIL collective, into the new Athletic Competitive Success Fund, and communicating.
It's definitely not as good of a name. I miss
right.
They need to work on the name.
But you dissolve that and you give fans a clear idea of how they can stay involved. And that organization gives me hope that the people in charge certainly have a plan that has a chance to succeed. But look, all this talk, man, we've got to name a winner in this one. Who wins versus in UCF versus Oregon State? We'll give our predictions right after a quick word from our friends at Locked On.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Who wins? ESPN's matchup predictor has UCF as a 62.6% chance to win this one. They are a 4.5-point favorite to beat Oregon State going into this one, Andrew. Look, if I'm a betting man, if I'm on FanDuel right now, I think I'm taking UCF on the money line on this one.
I am too, and here's why, because we haven't talked about this. Oregon State has also been affected by the transfer portal, and they have their top 3 scorers have declared that they're leaving. So the question is, are they going to be playing? We're still kind of wondering if it's going to, how UCF's impact, is going to be felt with Hall out. Well, Michael Rataj, DeJohn Craig, and Nate Kings and Parsifala. 3 of those guys are the top 3 scorers on this Oregon State team that has 2 really bad losses during this year, including their last game against Pepperdine in the West Coast Conference tournament, who's well in the 200s in the net. So I've got UCF in this one. I think you have a savvy veteran in Darius Johnson, who since towards the end of the year when it was like senior night has taken this team and put it on his shoulders and has really, pushed the accelerator down. And we're seeing him play extremely, extremely, fast and hard right now. So I got UCF on this one.
Over under is 159.5. Give me a score right quick. I'm going UCF 70. 8, Oregon State 70, and I'm taking the under. What do you got here? Give me a score.
I'm also taking the under because it hurts when you're losing 18 points per game. I've got UCF 75-65. There's going to be fouls and free throws, to kind of push that lead a little bit. But again, I got UCF in this one, moving on to the second round.
All right. Yes. So we're both taking the under, people. Andrew Gluco for the last word on sports. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Well, you can catch me on Twitter /X or Blue Sky at StatBoyDrew. And you catch my writings on The Last Word on College Football, a part of The Last Word on Sports family.
Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your next listen, go check out our friends at Locked On Big 12. You can find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.